Imagine going to go and forage food for your family only to never return home. This is exactly what happened on a quiet farm in Limpopo, South Africa last year, October, when 2 women went missing after foraging for expired yogurt on a nearby farm. Now, police would make a gruesome discovery. They would find the bullet-ridden bodies of these 2 women on the farm, and they had been fed to the pigs. You heard that correctly, the pigs. Today we are uncovering week 1 of the Limpopo pig farmer trial and how 2 women lost their lives in such an unnecessary way. Hello and welcome back to Voice for the Voiceless. I'm Carri, your host, and I cover stories that otherwise might not necessarily be covered by mainstream media. And before we dive in, make sure to subscribe and hit that like button so you never miss an episode. And if you like paranormal related content, I have launched a new channel known as African X-Files, so go and check that out. Now, before we get into it, let's talk a little bit about the factors in the story. This is a story about fear and desperation and what happens when desperation essentially meets cruelty. Because we know that the 2 women who were murdered, they were foraging for expired or near to be expired yogurt that was meant for the pigs on the farm. And this is an unfortunate reality that we live in South Africa. South Africa is one of the most unequal countries in the world. And as I often say, half the country is starving and the other half of the country is trying to lose weight. And these women knew that this a yogurt truck came and delivered yogurt on the nearby farm. And they wanted to go and forage yogurt for their families because they couldn't necessarily afford to buy yogurt for themselves, to buy food. And even though the women and the community knew that it was wrong to trespass on this farmer's farm, and we do not do victim blaming on this channel, we essentially know that no one deserves to be shot and killed for trespassing. It is against the laws in South Africa. Now, the accused in this case are 60-year-old Zachariah Olivier. He is the farm owner. 20-year-old Adrian de Wet, who has now turned state's witness, and he was a farm supervisor at the time. And it's his testimony that is going to be integral, basically, in, I believe, putting a case against the other 2. And then we have a foreign national, William Musora. He is 50 years old, and he also faces immigration-related charges because he was in South Africa illegally. Now, they're accused of murdering the 2 victims in this case, Makgato, 45 years old, as well as Kudzai Ndlovu, 34 years old, and hiding their bodies in a pigsty. Now, the motive for this crime, as I mentioned earlier, is that the women were allegedly scavenging for expired dairy products in a country where many struggle with hunger.
The murder trial against pig farmer Zachariah Olivier and his employee William Musora is expected to resume today at the Polokwane High Court. Olivier is accused of the murder of 2 women at his pig farm at Sebayeng in August last year. The remains of Maria Makgato and Kudzai Ndlovu were allegedly disposed of in a pigsty. Charges against Adrian de Wet, who worked as a supervisor at the farm, have been dropped after he turned state witness. Let's get the latest from Katlego Nyoni, who is covering the story for us. Katlego?
And the pig farm murder trial has been set on the Polokwane High Court's roll for the coming 2 weeks. The state has indicated that it is indeed ready to proceed with this particular murder trial, and it has turned accused number 2, Adrian de Wet, who worked as a farm supervisor at the time of this horrific incident in August last year, to be a witness in this particular case, also essentially placing him under protective custody. We expect that particular trial to resume. However, today only 2 of the accused will be appearing. That is Zimbabwean national William Musora, as well as pig farmer 61-year-old Zachariah Olivier. We heard from the state that it is indeed ready, and that Mr. de Wet has disclosed what had transpired at that farm on the Wacht last year. We understand also that he will likely testify that he was under duress when he was made to dispose of the bodies of the two women who were at the farm to look for food, that he was under duress when he was instructed by Olivier to dispose of the remains of the two women inside that particular pig's enclosure. We expect that more witnesses will be called. Musora, of course, also faces an additional charge of the contravention of the Immigration Act. We expect this trial to kickstart today. For the coming 2 weeks, it will be held at the Polokwane High Court here today. Leanne?
Now, according to Adrian's testimony, this began on the 17th of August 2024. That was last year. And what occurred is that him and the farm owner, Zachariah, they were away on a fishing trip and they came back to the farm at night. It was dark and they heard voices and they knew that a yogurt delivery had just been made to the farm for the pigs, and they realized that
the third witness in the case, De Wet, was asked to provide a chronological order of events that took place on August 17th. De Wet testified that in the morning of the shooting incident, he had gone on a fishing trip with accused number 1, Zachariah Olivier, and his family. Upon returning in the evening, he informed the court that he was handed over a 1-meter rifle by Olivier. Olivier then picked up a 60-centimeter rifle. De Wet went further to say that he was instructed that the two were going on an expedition for intruders at plot 21.
He said we must go down and check if those people who comes to steal over weekends, the piglets and the dairy products, if those people came.
And what did you understand by going down? What did you mean? Where?
Into the pig stalls. We stood and waited there for about half an hour. Then I heard voices of people walking our direction.
According to his testimony, Olivier fired 3 to 4 shots, while he fired 2 to 3 shots towards the direction of Maria Makgato, Kudzai Ndlovu, and Mabuto Ncube. After the shooting, De Wet and Olivier left the farm. The following morning on the 18th, a body of a female with gunshot injuries was discovered. De Wet pressed on to say that another instruction from Olivier was for the body to be placed inside a pigsty. There were close to 10 pigs inside the pigsty at the time.
We turned around the person and we found out that it was a black woman.
What happened after?
Then accused number 1, he told me we must put it inside the pig stall.
Where this body was placed, were there pigs inside? Pigs?
Yes.
How many pigs?
Between 8 and 10. 8 and 10.
De Wet will still be cross-examined by defense lawyer, advocate Jacobus Venter. The trial has been adjourned until next week, Wednesday. Katlego, SABC News, Polokwane.
And in his testimony, he stated that Zachariah had 2 guns. He handed him the bigger gun and basically ordered him to shoot in the direction of the voices. Now, these are all allegations. Zachariah Olivier is innocent until proven guilty in a court of law, and so is William Musora. And what happened is that Adrian says he knew that shooting in that direction, because they were shooting straight in that direction, according to him, that shooting in that direction, they knew that they were going to harm people. And he says that Zachariah's wife had allegedly warned them before not to shoot at people, otherwise they're going to end up in jail. And he knew that he could probably cause harm, but they fired the shots anyway. Adrian says that he heard someone screaming, and he says that he took out his cell phone, he used the light, and he walked over and he found someone that was lying face down in the ground. Now, instead of calling an ambulance, instead of calling the police, they went back to the farmhouse, according to state's witness. And we have to assign his words with as much salt or as much truth as you want to, because at the end of the day, remember, he was charged and now he is testifying for indemnity, immunity against these charges. And what we know from his testimony is that he says he struggled to sleep that night. And the farmer, Zachariah Olivier, he said that, you know what, this guy, the person is probably going to be okay. They're just lightly injured. Now, we know that they went back to the scene of the crime at the next day, and the body had not moved. That lady was lying still face down in the mud and her bullet-riddled body had essentially bled out during the night. And instead of calling the police then, instead of calling authorities, what they decided to do, according to Adrian de Wet, is they decided to put the body in the pigsty for the pigs to eat, because according to him, pigs will eat almost anything. This is when the third accused comes into the case, that 50-year-old William Musora, and he says that according to Adrian, he found the second body the next day of one of these women, and he helped these two men move the body into the pigsty. And Adrian says this happened on the 17th of August. Adrian says that he went around along with his business on the 18th, and on the 19th, when he returned to work on the farm, he didn't visit the pigsty. Instead, he was busy with other things, and a farm worker came up to him and said there are bodies in the pigsty. And that is when he went and he told the farm owner, hey, listen, the pigs haven't eaten everything. Another farm worker has discovered the bodies. And Zachariah Olivier allegedly said, okay, well, don't act suspicious. Let's call the police and just act as though you don't know anything. And when asked for the motive behind this murder, Adrian said that Zachariah allegedly said that he was fed up with people from the surrounding communities stealing the yogurt that was meant for the pigs. Now, in what we also know is that Zachariah and Adrian also are charged with obstruction of justice for hiding the women's bodies, but also for destroying evidence. We know that they cut up the guns the following day, which is the 18th of August. Remember, the killing happened on the 17th. Now the 18th, they cut up the rifles and the guns that were used, and they threw them in a well on the property. We have to also intersect here, because although the two women, Maria and Kudzai's bodies were thrown to the pigs, there was a third victim in this case, unbeknownst to Zachariah Olivier and Adrian de Wet, and that was Kudzai's husband. So Kudzai's husband had been foraging with them for yogurt, and he had also been shot at. He managed to crawl through the dark to the nearby road, where he flagged someone down and he was taken to the nearby hospital. Meanwhile, at home, Maria Makgato's family was getting worried because she had not returned home. She had left at around 2 p.m. on the 17th in order to go forage for the dairy, and we do not know if the dairy was being dumped on the farm or nearby the farm. That is something that is still being established, but what we do know is that it was meant for Zachariah's pigs. Now, according to Maria's son, who is absolutely heartbroken by the loss of his mother was supposed to be back, and she was not back, and he started to get worried. And the next day they started searching for her. Now, remember, the only surviving witness is Kudzai's husband, who is now in hospital in a critical condition. And eventually, when police were called, it was realized that Maria's son realized that his mother had been unalived and had been murdered. And the worst part about it is that there were missing pieces of her body. She was barely identifiable due to what had happened and how much the pigs had eaten. Now, through his lawyer, Zachariah Olivier has admitted to the firearms charges that are against him, as well as employing an illegal immigrant in the form of his employee. He claims in his statement or version of events that him and de Wet Adrian were patrolling the farm on the 17th of August and that they fired warning shots to scare off trespassers. But we know that these women's bodies, although the pathologist has not testified yet, they have been described as bullet-ridden. When you fire a warning shot, you are supposed to fire 1 or 2 in the air, not straight at people, as Adrian de Wet has said that Zachariah Olivier did. According to Olivier's version of the story, when Adrian turned his cell phone light on and went to go and search for the bodies and then came back and told him that there was a body, he said that he panicked and they moved the body into a pigsty to keep it safe from the pigs. Yep, to keep it safe from the pigs in the pigsty, not for the pigs to eat it. Well, then why did you put the body with the pigs? And then he says the next day he was informed of the second body, which he also moved to the pigsty because to keep it safe until he thought what to do, because he was panicking. And then he says that in this panic, he also admitted to cutting up the guns and the rifles, that he was scared and disgusted with what transpired. And that is his version of events. And we know that the state disputes that. And through his lawyer, the farm worker, William Musora, he has pleaded not guilty to all charges, and he just says that he was under duress to move the bodies. And that's the only way he participated, was moving the one body, while the other body was still. This is week 1 recap. I'll be doing week 2 recap next week. And this case also raises broader questions about food insecurity in South Africa, where essentially you have some people's livestock who are eating better than a majority of people in this country. And while farm murders are relatively rare in South Africa, according to official statistics, they make up 0.2% of all killings. They reveal deeper societal tension around poverty, desperation, violence, and land.